Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something genuinely bizarre, the hidden structure behind evil forces. We're going to map out how historical texts, folklore, and occult traditions have meticulously organized the invisible world of the dark arts. It's this absolutely fascinating phenomenon where humans have spent centuries trying to classify and essentially put a rigid bureaucratic framework around the very things that terrify us the most. So let's kick things off with a pretty wild paradox. Is evil just pure, untamed chaos? Or is it actually a highly structured corporate hierarchy? I mean, we usually picture the dark arts as this wild, unpredictable mayhem, right? But as we dig into the historical source material, from ancient grimoires all the way to modern esoteric texts, we find that humans have historically assigned these forces a very rigid, almost corporate organizational chart. Section 1. The Architecture of Chaos. To really wrap our heads around this hierarchy, we first have to look at the foundational architecture humans use to even conceptualize these forces. Because before you can categorize a spirit, you have to define the void it actually comes from. Take the infamous Codex Gigas, for example. You probably know it as the Devil's Bible. According to this text, the terrifying entities of the invisible world were shaped directly by human fear itself. These entities weren't necessarily born of some anti-divine grace, but rather they're intimately tied to our own psychology. It's like we projected our deepest, darkest anxieties into the void and then decided we absolutely had to give those anxieties specific names and faces. And this brilliantly illustrates how even the most formless, primordial mess was given a very specific title. Let's look at Azathoth from the Necronomicon. It's literally described as formless confusion and the antithesis of creation. Yet even pure confusion gets a proper name, a fancy title like Prime Mover in Darkness, and its own astrological association. It just goes to show we simply cannot handle the unknown without trying to stick a label on it. Section 2. Classifying the invisible. Okay, so once the foundation of chaos was named, the next logical step was to classify the entities that supposedly lived there. A perfect example of this pops up in Islamic theological texts, which systematically categorize the jinn into 6 distinct ranks based on their behavior, where they hang out, and their power levels. It reads less like a mystical text and honestly more like grading employees. You've got the general jinni, the Aumar, who share our houses, the Arwah, who interact with kids, all the way up to the wicked shaitan, the powerful Marid, and finally the absolute top tier, highly dangerous Ifrit. It's incredibly structured. What's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between the older view of these spirits and the later, strictly malicious demonic stereotype. Older texts, like the True Grimoire, viewed a lot of these entities as elementals. Neutral, highly intelligent nature spirits that could actually help enhance a person's development. But over time, they got this massive PR rebrand, turning entirely into rebellious, malicious demons whose only job was to cause destruction. Section 3. The 9 Degrees of Evil. Moving right up the corporate ladder of the underworld, once these entities were classified as evil, they obviously needed specific jobs. Enter the 16th century occultist Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, who perfectly mapped out this entire bureaucracy in his occult philosophy. He identified exactly which department handles which type of misfortune. The second order, they handle lying prophecies. The fourth order, harsh judgments. And the sixth order is literally just in charge of bad weather. Every single type of human misery was assigned a specific function and a regional prince, creating this highly organized, well-oiled machine of misfortune. So, whether you're facing legal accusations or just dealing with your own personal greed, historical texts assign a specific manager to oversee that exact temptation. For instance, the 8th order are the accusers working under Astaroth, and the 9th are the tempters commanded by Mammon. The source material essentially argues that your bad luck isn't random at all. It's actually a specialized service provided by a dedicated department. Section 4. Rulers of the Four Corners. Now, above those middle managers sit the executives, the absolute rulers who divide the invisible world into 4 distinct geographical territories. Because you can't have a massive bureaucracy without a board of directors, right? Various grimoires strictly align these 4 princes of spirits with compass directions and natural elements. This proves that even the darkest forces were believed to follow geographic rules. You've got Orions out in the east dealing with fire, all the way down to Amamon in the south rooted in earth. The entire universe of the occult is divided into these neat, perfectly elemental quadrants. And the texts get incredibly, almost absurdly specific about these executives. Take King Baal of the East from the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum. He doesn't just show up. He manifests with 3 very specific heads, a toad, a man, and a cat. He speaks in a hoarse voice. And he doesn't just command some vague army. He commands exactly 66 legions of spirits. Not 65, not 67, exactly 66. The human desire to quantify the unquantifiable here is just wild. Section 5. Mechanics of the Black Art. Okay, so how did people supposedly navigate this massive bureaucracy to actually file their requests? Let's look at the methodologies practitioners supposedly used. According to Daniel Defoe's 18th century analysis, A System of Magic, humans utilized 8 specific branches of the black art to secretly correspond with these invisible agents. Defoe didn't just throw out the word magic and call it a day. He categorized it into divining, observing of times, witchcraft, necromancy, the whole shebang. He viewed it as a comprehensive system of secret correspondence, basically a dark arts curriculum. Even modern esoteric practices treat this communication almost clinically. In texts dealing with telepathic magic, the process is broken down into a super rigid 2-step procedure: projection and reception. It treats the human mind and spiritual influence exactly like radio frequencies. You build a psychic construct, project it out there, and then open yourself up to receive data back. It's presented as a literal psychic science. Which brings us to one of the most brilliant and honestly kind of funny analogies found in modern analysis of ceremonial magic. Practitioners essentially developed a supernatural beeper system. By creating specific geometric sigils, seals, or magic squares, they believed they were handing a demon a pager. You activate the seal, the beeper goes off in the underworld, and the spirit shows up to do its assigned task. It's the ultimate expression of micromanaging the supernatural. Section 6, Controlling the Uncontrollable, which brings us to arguably the most fascinating psychological question of this entire explainer. Why on earth have humans spent centuries building this exhaustive, highly specific organizational chart for things we can't even see? Well, Daniel Defoe actually hit the nail on the head when he noted that every person seems tethered to their own unique, personal, invisible force that dictates their habits and desires. When we step back and look at all these ranks, legions, elements, and supernatural beepers, what we are really looking at is a mirror reflecting our own internal battles. We map the darkness outside because it's the only way we can understand the darkness inside. Ultimately, structuring our fears into strict hierarchies gives us a comforting illusion of control. It begs a really profound question to leave you with. By giving our darkest fears specific names, ranks, and departments, are we truly controlling the darkness? Or are we simply building a structured cage for our own minds? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the structures around you, both the visible ones and the invisible.